Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to the MagicHour.Podcast.
This is very exciting.
I'm very excited. My name is Candace Marie.
My name is Simon.
And we are coming to you guys live in beautiful Santa Monica. I guess it's live for us. It's not for you guys, but we are here to chat with you guys about our magical lives. And this is the very first episode of what we hope to be many.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be great.
And we want to give a shout out also to the studio that's hosting us.
Oh, absolutely. Kill the messenger. Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for having us and for believing in us.
Yes, believing in us and letting this happen. This is exciting.
We want to start the podcast off by telling you guys a love story.
Oh.
And the love story that we're going to tell you is the love story between myself and Simon. So you have a better understanding of
how this is happening.
Happening and how this has come together. Because the focus of this podcast is not only to talk about spirituality and otherworldly things, maybe paranormal stuff, some magic, some tarot, some astrology, but also we want to talk about spirituality and how we can help guide people with a little bit of humor and how you can apply it to your real life.
Your day to day.
Yeah, that's really what the plan is. So a little bit about us.
Wow. Well,
Go ahead, Simon.
Well, this love affair has been nearly for a year and a half, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I, on a very sunny Sunday afternoon, walked into a magic shop in LA and I got a reading from the wonderful Candace. And it was, to say that it changed my life is probably a little bit of an understatement. It sounds dramatic. It sounds dramatic, but it was amazing, and ever since then we've been very good friends, and we, do a lot of this magic-y stuff together, and here we are.
I laugh. I call you my gay husband. I don't know if you're aware of this, although there's been a couple throughout the years.
I was going to say you've had a few.
There's been a couple like stand-in boyfriends that have been homosexual, but nevertheless, I love you so much.
I love you too. I love you so, so much. And now here we are. And we are going to
We have some notes. This is a little bit new. I mean, the podcast started off with what was an idea, what has kind of sort of transformed over the past year between being on various other networks and doing some live TV stuff. And I think probably about 6 months ago, I sat down and I was like, this is it. We're going to do a podcast. And I bought mics and I bought mixers and I did everything. And I'm like, anyone who knows me, I wouldn't say I'm like computer illiterate, but when it comes to, GarageBand or editing anything, I butcher everything. And I mean, I went as far as recording some stuff and doing some things and talking to some people. And, today, what is the date today? Today's the 9th?
The 9th, I think.
I believe so. The 9th of June?
Or the 10th?
The 10th. It's the 10th, excuse me. So it's the 10th. And it's so fascinating because I got the call from Simon a couple days ago that he was a little bit intoxicated, but that's okay.
I was so drunk. So drunk.
Most of the best stories, I feel like, between us come from being completely and utterly obliterated.
Absolutely.
But this was Simon calling me, trying to call me on FaceTime going, oh my God, we got a podcast. And it took about 4 or 5 phone calls before I finally got through to him and realized what he was telling me and that he pitched it to somebody who believed in him and whatever it is he told them, and then led us to where we are now. So I do believe in magic. I think that I'm so excited to be starting on what is a full moon. We're still in the full moon energy. It hit yesterday around 6 a.m. Pacific time. It was a full moon in Sagittarius. And I was looking at my transit planets the past couple of weeks, and I was like, something else is coming in. I don't know what it is. So for those of you guys who don't know me, although I'm sure that if you're listening to this, it's because I sent you a link and said you must listen to this and share it with your friends. I am a practicing, I'm going to say intuitive, although I am clairvoyant. I read tarot. I'm a Western astrologer. I want to start calling myself a creatrix because I do a little bit of everything. But this has been such an awesome opportunity to be able to talk a little bit more about my world. And Simon obviously has become a part of that. But I think the big thing here is just to have fun, to be able to have fun and be able to show a different side of spirituality. I have so many friends that do so many amazing, crazy things, but I always joke and I laugh because I'm not granola.
No.
You know, I shave my legs and I'm still very feminine and I haven't completely drank the Kool-Aid, although I've I guess maybe played around with the Kool-Aid a little bit, but yeah, so I want to be able to have insight into what it's like to perhaps be a part of this world and just a little bit of the comedy that comes with some of the stuff that we have been encountering, which have been nothing short of magical for the past year. It's not just me. I mean, you've had a lot amazing career stuff that's happened.
It's been amazing. There's been something going on.
Well,
for
brag.
Sure.
Go ahead and brag. Tell them what you do.
I work in TV. I'm a TV producer, freelance, unscripted TV. And yes, the last year has been a crazy ride and lots of traveling and amazing experiences and working on some really cool, different kind of shows. And it's all sort of stuff that I think I manifested in a way.
Oh, you did.
And we can talk about, manifesting is a big thing.
Like literally manifesting? Men?
Yeah, well, a little bit of that too. And it's kind of coming true, and it's exciting, and
it's been a wild year. And I think part of it is, you know, I've talked to you about this, but like you and I have so much in common, I think, in terms of like craziness with, you know, our family and growing up. And, you know, even though we may not be compatible in terms of our sun signs, we'll get around to that in a second. But we have so much in common because we're around the same birth year. So we're going through the same transits at the same time. And so something that I've been really, really interested in is talking to a lot of people who are born around the same time as us because they're going through the same planetary transits. And we're seeing that all of a sudden the past year of our life, our adult life is getting really real with our careers and what we're doing, and finding that we're not wanting to conform to what is expected, to what is like an 8-to-5 job or what is a 9-to-5 job. And
absolutely,
we're kind of trying to navigate this in our own way, but we're also like fiercely creative. Excuse me, I'm giving you guys tranny voice. We're fiercely creative. And so that's why I love doing anything with you, because I feel like you get it.
I do get it. I definitely get it.
Okay.
For everyone listening, I was born in 1988. When were you born?
I was born the tail end of 89, so...
So, with all the craziness that's what kind of the big changes and things that are happening for people that are born around that time, is it kind of specifically people born around that time really going through something? Or is there like everyone who was born in 79 right now are feeling some way? Everyone who was born in 2002 was feeling some way, or is it significant to...
So part of what I look at is not only the natal planets in the birth chart when you were born, but I also look at the transiting planets that are moving now and how they interact with the planets when you were born. So everybody, when they hit 28, they have what we call as a progressed lunar return. So this is, you know, your moon moves about every 2 years before you hit about 27 going on 28, and you have that lunar return. So it's supposed to give you some insight. You'll see some events happening in your life that are giving you forewarning of what you can expect at 29 and 30.
Okay.
And that's your Saturn's return. So it takes Saturn about 28 and change, almost 29 years to move. So what's interesting about the people from 1988, 1989, 1990 is we have something called a stellium. And the stellium is more than 3 or more planets that are conjunct in one sign. So we happen to have it in Capricorn. And so when we think Capricorn, I think a lot of people think like doom and gloom, but it is a Saturn-based sign. And so what we're seeing is what should be our Saturn return, which is really somewhere around 2018, 2019, is actually being extended because it's going to hit multiple planets. So shit's going to get real as soon as Saturn gets into Capricorn, and that's going to be really the end of 2017 in December, going into January. And you and I, because you're a Virgo rising.
I am.
And I'm a very early degree of Libra rising. We are going through the same transits at the same time. So we're starting to see the craziness with our family. We're starting to see the craziness with our home, our living situation, but also so much of it is about Capricorn. It's about our career. And so things are changing, and we've fallen into these like really serendipitous situations that I feel are like divine intervention, where something is up there looking after us going like, you know, go this way.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there's also just a lot of other things that come with that. And we've I guess we've kind of talked about it, but I think a big part of it is the Uranus. The the Uranus Neptune Saturn conjunction. And I look at that and I think you're either going to have issues with addiction or drinking. You're going to go totally batshit crazy. Or you're going to learn to use Saturn to harness the energy of those planets and have it be something that's just epically creative. Now, I can vouch, I can say, I think I'm dealing with all three at the same time.
And I was going to say, is that a possibility? Because I think I might be too.
Well, I think that you will have to play with different variations. Each planet is a different vibration of love. And that's what's taking me a really long time to realize. It's like Saturn kicked my ass all over the place when it went through Scorpio in like 2013, 2014. It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
And that's when we experienced a lot of death. We experienced a lot of ego changes, things that had to do with how we're making money. But now that we're here, I'm trying to have love for Saturn because I look back and I'm like, my entire life changed because of that transit. And I am where I am now because of what I went through. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it's an issue. And I think that we're seeing a lot of this in people who are around our age group. And I don't think it's just an age thing. I think it's having Neptune in Capricorn and being able to differentiate, do we play into the substances? Do we play into prescribed medications to deal with mental, emotional, physical issues? Are we participating in substance abuse or recreational substance use or alcohol too much, especially that Saturn Neptune. I mean, that can be a killer. And I think I've been thinking about that a lot going into
conscious of it
next year and thinking about, do I want to? I've played with sobriety. Sobriety and I we do a back and forth dance. And I think that I wasn't able to kind of get my act together and really focus on what I want to do until I did go through a period of sobriety.
But does it have to be the all or nothing? So when you say sobriety, that's essentially no drinking, no anything.
Yeah.
Can you find a balance?
To each their own. I mean, Saturn is about limitation, and I think it's about being able to find your grounding and finding that there are limits. And I'm not ever going to tell anybody that they can't, but I think so much of what I've seen with me personally, maybe it's because I'm a water sign, I like to drink, that I am looking at it going, maybe it does need to be a period of like me getting really right with things. Now, Saturn conjunct Neptune is also bringing in the practicality and the stability of Saturn, and then being able to also use the creative divine consciousness. Neptune is a higher octave of love, and how we connect to a higher consciousness, or how we connect to our higher self or spirituality or whatever it is that we believe in. And really, I see that transit as a time where we start to really apply our spiritual knowledge, and we start to kind of make it a part of our daily routine. For us especially, because it's hanging out in our fourth house. And so on a surface level, it's a lot of you do your meditation, sage your home, this and that. But that's bullshit surface astrology. And that's not, I think that's why astrology.
That's my astrology. I sage my house.
No, I do
I
too.
meditate, but I don't officially meditate. I dance, which I'm told is a form of meditation.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
I dance around the living room like a lot.
But it's in your home.
Yes.
See,
it's
in your home.
Yes.
So it's that, and being able to have it be something that grounds you. And so once you have your routine, which being a Virgo rising, you have your own ways of doing things. You guys are very particular about, I do this every day. I eat this. I dress this way. I keep my things in this place. And God help me, I'm a 0-degree Libra. I could never be that organized ever. Like, I just can't. I don't have it in me. But yeah, it's interesting. Do I think that we all have to be sober? No, I'm never going to tell people what to do. I think that what I've seen thus far, having, I like I said, when you have your return, Saturn returns to where it was when you were born. So in theory, we've had Saturn go all the way through all of the other signs up into this point. So we're going to experience Saturn in a similar way to how the world was when we were born. And if you go back to that, and if you look at what was going on in the late 90s, this was the beginning of a lot of corruption going on in corporate America. It was a lot of people were still coming off of the cocaine binges. People were still coming off of, and this was Pluto and Scorpio also, but a lot of starting to really focus on material things. It's the clothes that we own, the home that we have, the cars that we drive. And in all honesty, it's always been a keeping up with the Joneses situation, really, I think, since probably like the 50s. But that's when things turned and it became more of a focus on you are what you have and you are who you are based off of the job that you make and the money that you make. How fascinating that now when Saturn returns, I feel a lot of us are rejecting that. A lot of us are rejecting that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't have a normal living situation by any means.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that is because of what I do with work. But on a grand scale of what's going on with some of the planetary movements, we're seeing more communal living than ever before. We're seeing a lot of people who are choosing to work from home, work remotely, work independently, freelance for themselves, which is very interesting because that Uranus, Neptune energy is so, I mean, it's inventive. We cannot be contained, which is why a lot of us have had a bit of a struggle, I think, thus far the past couple of years, fighting what is expected of us in terms of society.
Yeah.
But also doing things extremely different than our parents.
So different.
Right.
So different.
Right. And it's this constant, not judgment, but I think it's safe to say a lot of our parents think that we're crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a parent that maybe perhaps does have Saturn in Capricorn as well, who was going through, you know, their Saturn return about the time that you were born. And so if your parents were in their late 20s going on 30 and getting married and having children, I have connected with so many women, more so women than men, which is interesting, who are Saturn in Capricorn approaching their second Saturn return that are all of a sudden deciding, I don't want to be an accountant anymore. I want to be a shaman. I'll get it, girl.
Right? Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't want to be...
Just these complete sort of...
Just this flip.
Yeah.
And really what's going on a grand scale, because whatever is going on in your immediate life is a reflection of what's going on currently in the world. And so right now, Saturn's in Sagittarius. And so those of you guys who are around, you know, 29, 30, 31, you guys have been going through this for a couple years. Sagittarius rules foreign travel, immigrants, higher education, spirituality. What else? I mean, the ninth house with Sag, it's the connection to God. It's the house of God. It's how we connect to our higher selves. So there is a trend
Excuse me.
going on where this, I believe, is why we've seen so much happening with immigration, with our relations with foreign countries, with a lot of radical, you know, issues about religion. And it's been so front and center really the past couple of years because it's setting up the stage for Saturn to enter Capricorn later this year, where there will be a complete overhaul in government.
Wow.
And we're seeing it, guys.
Yeah, no, we are. We absolutely are.
We're seeing it. I mean, it happened with Brexit first, which is what I thought was very fascinating, especially considering there was an eclipse, and this eclipse happened over the UK, and that kind of foreshadows when things begin to change. And so I've been looking, now we can talk about it. I've been looking at the eclipses for this year, and we're having an eclipse coming on August the 21st at 29 degrees Leo. And this eclipse is going to be fantastic. This is the first time we've had an eclipse visible over the States and on or around similar placements and themes since 1776.
Wow.
So
1776.
Oh, you remember, don't you? That's when we...
Isn't that when you became a country on your own?
That was our independence. And so it's crazy.
What, and seriously, this eclipse hasn't happened here since then?
No, since then. So this is bringing it all back. I mean, in terms of being visible, it's bringing it all back, and it's a part of a grander scale. The United States is having a Plutonian return. So it takes 200 and something odd years for Pluto to completely come back around. So this is more so, you're going to see change really happening 2018 to 2021-22 when the United States is having its Pluto return. But Saturn going through Capricorn is going to be exposing manipulation, corruption in the banking systems, especially when Uranus goes into Taurus, but in corporate America, in corporate companies all over the world, in the government system. I mean, it's gonna be wild.
And you're talking about a lot of sort of planets and then relating them to signs. How would it affect, for example, so Saturn going into Capricorn, how does that affect a Capricorn? The full moon that just happened that was in Sagittarius, how does that affect somebody who is Sagittarius?
Okay, good question. So whenever you're having a major planetary something or a lunar something, so you have a new moon and a full moon every month. And generally speaking, we have each sign will have one new moon and one full moon every year. So a new moon is where there is something new that's starting in an area of your chart. When a full moon is an accumulation, a cultivation of all of that energy and bringing it in. And these are always 6 months apart. So you notice we just had, yesterday, this full moon in Sag. That means the new moon that we had in Sagittarius, really, I believe it should have been back the end of November, beginning of December. Right. So that was when we were in the sun time of Sagittarius. So when there is a new moon, it's when the sun and the moon collide. When we have a full moon, it's when there is a sun-moon opposition.
And the new moon will always fall
during the month
of that sign. Yes. My new moon is during the time frame of an Aries.
Yes.
But my full moon would be 6 months later.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it would be during the time of Libra, which has been particularly interesting for you. We'll talk about those transits because they're so similar to ours. But those of you guys who are listening, like I said, if you are a Sagittarius, the full moon, I believe, was around 18, 19 degrees. So that's pretty significant if your birthday was around this time. If you have a planet in Sagittarius around 18, 19 degrees. I work with like a 3 or a 4 degree orb, so anywhere around that before or after it's affected. But this also goes the same for the mutable signs. So, mutable signs being Sag, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, it affects you as well because that is a square. So if you have your sun around those degrees, a square is a little bit of pressure.
Okay.
And where there's pressure, it's just showing you where you need to be figuring things out and kind of navigating in a way to release that. So pressure, squares aren't necessarily fun, but I think they are necessary to kind of get a fire under us, to get us moving.
To do something.
This past full moon was pretty significant. And this is the last full moon we're going to have in Sagittarius before Saturn leaves. And so it was kind of bunched up within several degrees of transiting Saturn and Black Moon Lilith. And basically, what I made of this is first of all, it's a very lucky full moon. It's very lucky because Sagittarius.
And for everyone or just for Sagittarius?
For everyone.
Okay.
For everyone. And this is the first lunar transit, I feel, this year that is positive, that has positivity behind it. It was a powerful day yesterday. We had the full moon around 6 a.m., but something else magical happened yesterday later in the day. Jupiter went direct. So
that sounds so real. I don't know what that means.
It's so good.
But Jupiter went direct and fuck.
So Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sag.
Okay.
And Jupiter is currently in Libra. It entered into Libra last fall. So it's positive year for relationships, working well with other people. It's also supposed to be a positive year for partners, business partners. Libra rules the 7th house. Obviously, to those of you guys who are kind of like lost in translation, or if this sounds like Latin, if you check out a birth chart calculator online, all you need is the time, the date, and the location to be able to look at your chart. And you can actually pull that up on Astro.com. You can go and see a reader. So you can have an idea of when certain things are happening in your chart or where your planets are. But when a planet goes direct, it means it's no longer going retrograde. And so when I say retrograde, people automatically scramble, and I feel like they assume that Mercury is in retrograde because that's the one that gets the most headlines.
Yep.
But every planet will go retrograde. So from the Earth's view, it appears that that the planet is going backwards. Wow. But during this time, we feel so much intense energy of the theme of that planet because it's almost closer to Earth, so it affects us more. So we've had Jupiter going retrograde for a number of months, which means we are reviewing, we are revising ourselves, our relationship with ourselves and what we want. I mean, I think it's safe to say our dating lives have been a shit show.
No, it's been wonderful. No. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Good experiences, though, because when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's reminding you, like, okay, it brings you back to the relationship with yourself time and time and time again. And so it's been fun, but now that it's direct, I mean, I loved it because Jupiter in Libra, also Libra is ruled by Venus. So it loves to indulge, it loves to eat, it loves to drink, it loves to have sex. And it was like, it went direct yesterday and everybody was like, let me bring you some alcohol, let me take you out to dinner, let me feed you. I baked you a cake. And I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Wow.
But now we're in a very positive flow with Jupiter. Jupiter isn't going to be going retrograde again for some time. And we're seeing that it's moving forward. So whatever we have learned the past several months, having it retrograde and really reevaluating the relationship with ourselves, now we move forward and we're able to really kind of start off on the right foot in terms of relationships, business partnerships, romantic relationships, friendships, all of these things. And it's nice. I think it's nice.
I think it sounds lovely. And in order for everyone kind of as individuals to what do they need to be aware? I guess what am I trying to say? In order for them to learn the lesson or to understand or get the feeling that they're supposed to, what do they need to be aware of?
Well,
because I feel like so many people who might not know anything about this, there's a lot who don't.
Specifically, you really want to look at your chart and see where Jupiter is. And as a whole, what we've been seeing outward in the world is we've had this really crazy Jupiter opposing Uranus in Aries. And Uranus, I'm just going to keep saying it like this. Uranus!
Yeah, then it was just making me laugh because then it was followed by Aries, which I am. So it just, go figure.
But that planet, it's like a grenade. And whatever it touches, it blows up and transforms everything into a million little pieces, only to bring it back together in a different, more creative, unexpected way. Mm-hmm. So you've had that transiting your sun for some time, more specifically the past year, because it's been right on top of your sun. So your sun is your ego, your energy, your personality, how you react in the world, how you're seen, but it also can reflect parts of your career and your profession.
Okay.
And it's been colorful because you've had to be very inventive and very creative and think very quickly because it's fire and fire moves fast. Your sun is like right around my moon. So how you've been evolving outwardly and how you react and how you're seen, it's been happening on an emotional level for me,
internally.
Which has been like
interesting. Wow.
But the nice thing is that it's no longer conjunct that degree for us. So it's wavering around there, but it's getting better. But the fact that Uranus has been opposing Jupiter is showing us partnerships and how Jupiter in Libra wants us to have partnerships and positive partnerships and healthy partnerships, but it has to come through that opposition or that evolution with that planet in Aries. We have to evolve. We have to change. And we're seeing people acting erratically in relationships. I've seen relationships this year where suddenly people look around after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years going, oh, I'm done.
Wow.
That's it. And we're seeing that partners are evolving, and that's a good thing. I mean, we can grow together, we can grow apart. I think that's the nature of dating and that whole arena.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing with, they had said, I was doing another podcast recently they were talking about the Chinese astrology and that this is the year of the firecock.
Wow.
And
that sounds
I know
fun.
You got so excited.
That sounds fun. Okay.
But this is...
What does the firecock do?
Aries is the independent, it's the spiritual warrior. It's this person who charges into battle, and they're ruled by Mars. So it's a lot of heat. And we have Uranus there. So it's creating sudden unexpected change and tension also. So what may be people struggling with making changes and realizing who they are, and it can be sudden and shocking events that transform them and change them, we can apply this to what's going on in the world, and we've seen the tension that's been happening with people threatening war, countries threatening to attack, terrorism.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, more of the terrorism is actually Chiron, that's in Pisces, and Pisces has to do with, endings. It has to do with what's going on a spiritual level. Chiron is the wounded healer, so it's a lot of pain, actual physical attacks. And then Saturn, which is in Sagittarius, which is about, spiritual stuff, foreign places, foreign policies. And so when we have two fire signs, now Saturn is at a later degree. So, the degrees go from 0 to 29. Saturn is hovering around the late 20 degrees right now, going retrograde. So it's going back. It's trining Uranus. Wow. So really what's happening is Saturn brings structure. Uranus brings unexpected change. When these trine, although these events are sometimes completely traumatic, and very fast acting, it's happening for the better, and it's happening to shake things up and get people talking and get people. We see so many more people out on the streets talking amongst themselves, and instead of sitting in front of a TV.
It's true.
We have activists. We have people who are taking this to our local and federal governments, who are standing up to government and saying, we don't support this. We are not going to be racist.
Yeah.
We are not going to, oppose people because of their religious beliefs, because of their social structure, because of where they come from, because of what they practice. What you're seeing is actually through the chaos, we're seeing unity. And that's the only way that this is going to work.
As if we come together.
And it's really, it's not easy. It's almost like it's got to get really bad before it gets better.
Yeah. But it's so interesting, everything that you're talking about, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who might be listening to this or who might not be, who are skeptical and they don't believe in any of this kind of stuff. And I think that's because when we talk about it generally, we talk about it on such a personal level, how it affects you, how I should be the person I should be dating, but they're the wrong star sign. And then everything you've sort of laid out there is the world. It's happening in the world. So it's not, people can see it. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's part of, I think that astrology can get a bad rap. And I think because a mass majority of the general population, although since Saturn has gone into Sagittarius, we've seen spirituality that's just popping. It's on the rise the past couple of years.
And I think people are really just looking for something.
They want answers.
And to have that feeling of faith, which is a lovely feeling to have, but not in that structured sort of, it is God and he is behind a pearly gate and his son is Jesus, etc., etc.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot more people who are open-minded to different belief systems and throughout all of the drama also becoming more tolerant. It's like I see things where you've got, Muslims that are holding space and allowing Christians to pray in other countries, or you're seeing that there is light at the end of the tunnel through all of the horrible things that we're hearing about persecution and how people are being treated because of their belief systems. There are so many good stories where we're seeing that people are learning to be so sympathetic to other people and that it really
empathy.
So
much empathy.
And not only that, but people are realizing that religion is universal.
Yeah.
A higher source, a higher power, whether you believe in God, Jesus, Allah, the flying spaghetti monster, it doesn't matter. It's that there is a higher source, there is a higher power, and part of that also is the connection with your higher self. Because we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, which can be very, very, very difficult. But I think it's so interesting. It's like you had said, everything where who I should be dating and not dating. Really, that's a very, very, very small piece of what the real conversation is who should my president be?
Absolutely.
Where should I be living?
Exactly.
What should my belief system
and
be?
it's kind of taking that out of just the individual and looking at it broader. And like what's interesting, so you talked earlier about the eclipse that happened over the UK during Brexit. We have something happening across the States. So where we find parts of the world that have certain discriminations or wars, can that be relayed to where they physically sit in the planet?
Absolutely. You're talking about one of my favorite things that I've been like checking into recently, and that's astrocartography.
Wow.
So you can actually take your natal planets and plug it in. To those of you guys who are listening, it's free. Go and check out astro.com. You can create a profile, and if you put in all the information, you can lay your planetary lines over a map in any country, and you can trace family lineage.
Wow.
You can see where your family lines stem from. You can see where you should and should not be living. I mean, I've seen it go as far as where Venus or Saturn lines sometimes will run through certain countries, and it ends up being where a woman's husband's from. And your planetary placements are your karmic contract. That's really what this is. Astrology is here to tell the story of when your soul incarnated, what you agreed to and what you chose. And so I think, for going back to the question about the countries, every country has a birth chart. And that birth chart is when the country was founded or had their independence. And so we can actually look and see when they're having major transiting planets go through their chart and why they may be dealing with what they're dealing with. And we can also look at if somebody is living in a particular place, how they will be reacting to those energy and those lines, those planetary lines that actually go through the chart, which is completely fascinating. It's like, especially I was looking at it, it's like I have a love-hate relationship with Los Angeles. I have to be really honest with you. I am not from here.
I think a lot of people do in this city.
I'm not from here, and I think that I'm so grateful to have had been here because I don't know if I could. Well, I guess I could do what I'm doing anywhere, but recently it's been really good to me. I couldn't figure out why I got here. I came here when I was 14 or 15 after a whole string of just really bad events in my life. And I've been here ever since, and it's like I can't escape. Like if I ever start to kind of make plans to go elsewhere or to do something else, it just doesn't work out. And it wasn't until I spoke to an astrologer recently who's a friend of mine who was like, oh, well, Los Angeles is an Aquarius city.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't care for Aquarian energy for me personally because it rubs me the wrong way with all my Scorpio. But in my chart, my North Node, which is my Dharma, what I'm supposed to be achieving in my 5th house is about, independence, being a spiritual independent person, being in media and being able to talk to people, which is like, I have to tell you, this is the extent of my extrovertedness. I'm pretty introverted for the most part.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But that connection to the North Node being in Aquarius and this being an Aquarian city is why things have picked up. So you can literally look at these charts and go, "Oh yeah, sure, move to Vegas."
What kind of city is San Francisco? I'm just asking for a friend.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to fact check it. I'll fact check it, but I'll get the info. But you can actually. I was looking through a site and it was giving all of it can just tell you the sun, but it can also tell you the sun and the moon of each city.
Wow.
So you can literally go and research and look specifically at the sun and the moon and know where you're more likely to meet a partner, where you're more likely to have career success. I had a client the other day. I felt for her because I said to her, I don't understand why you're having such a hard time in LA. So we ran the chart, and I don't always usually do astrocartography, but I knew that she needed it because she is a foreigner. And we were looking at it, and she had Saturn, which is like restriction and difficult lessons, and Chiron running right through Los Angeles. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, well, you came here for school, right? She's like, yeah. She's like, but it's been an uphill battle. And the more that I looked into it, I was like, this has just been nothing but pain. Ultimately, yeah, you want to come here for school. You don't want to live here.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe to people who are questioning where they are and why they are there and how long they should be there, it's really helpful. I think also if you want to really get into it and start looking at your family heritage and seeing the lines that go through certain countries, if you have not connected to that energy, I almost feel like energetically going to some of these places and being there might be something that unlocks spiritually or energetically.
Yeah.
Just being there. I've never been to Romania. my father's side of the family is Romanian. And I wasn't shocked when I saw all these, family lines running through Romania, but I was like, well, I got to go there and clean something up.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating.
No, it is. And do you know what? I'm just thinking now, in all the time that we've known each other, we've never had this conversation. We've never kind of related back to the geography of where we are and why we might be there.
Right.
It's always been sort of very personal, like as it is when you kind of have that reading. So to kind of learn that, maybe, the reason that there's so much struggle, say, in the Middle East, that's completely generalizing, but you know what I mean, is because of where those countries are in a line with the universe.
Right.
Why certain cities become what they become. Los Angeles is entertainment capital, you know?
Well, Aquarius, technology.
And look at
quirkiness.
that. Wow.
And all kinds of stuff. And, Aquarius is the ruling planet for astrology. And so much of like the past couple of years, I've been like, I don't want to do media. I don't want to do it. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when it was just like, maybe about a year and a half ago, it was just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So finally I was like, okay, I'm not going to fight it. My South Node's in Leo. So I'm like one dramatic bougie biatch.
Yeah.
I am.
You are a bougie. Yeah. No, you are.
So in theory, you'd think I would like it, but I really don't. I'm appreciative, but I don't care for being on the camera. I don't. And it's a really difficult place to be in where you're putting yourself on a public platform and you're putting out some ideas that are totally out of the box. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff I say is just people think I'm batshit crazy. But really, I'm trying to come at it from a different perspective where I can use that Saturn Neptune and be practical, which is why I love talking to you, because you get it. Like, there's something about when we talk about that stuff, and when I talk to people, it doesn't matter what their age is. Sometimes people will say things and it's just like, when you can just like feel it and you're like, yeah, that's right. Like that's what I'm trying to aim with talking to people about things. And maybe people don't necessarily believe in astrology, but I live for skeptics. Skeptics are my favorite people in the entire world.
Yes, they are.
They are amazing because I'm a skeptic. Like, I go and get readings, and when I get readings, I won't tell them anything because, I think that you should question everything. Like, everything should be questioned, and you should go to multiple sources, and you should learn, different modalities, and you take what you like and you leave the rest, because the message that you get from source can be delivered in so many ways. And I think the issue is that people can get so self-righteous about this is what's going to happen, that is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I don't think people really understand how readings work, and that really it's just whoever your messenger is, however they're relaying things to you, it's all about how they come across and how tactful they are and how honest they're being about things and their interpretation of the planets or the tarot cards or the crystals or the energy or whatever. But really, these are all tools. And I don't know, to me, I want to change the perspective of how people look at things, because I view a reading as, when I'm talking to somebody, I may use multiple tools. Yeah. But really, when it comes down to it, my job is to be the middleman. So I'm here to connect you to your higher self, because your higher self is looking down at the Monopoly board and seeing everything that's coming at you and what's going to be happening and organizing things. Your body has various energetic fields. You've got your mental, emotional, physical, sexual, spiritual body. It's like all of these different layers that makes up this blob that we call a suit. And when I talk to you, my job is to be able to tell you what I'm seeing coming and align those various energy bodies, so that way the information that you're taking in, it sits right with you, and it should sit right with you, even if it's stuff that you don't want to hear. So that way you know what's coming, to align yourself with your higher self, and it's just a reflection of you. Yeah. So once everything's in order, it's almost like, I don't know about you, but I've had some readings where I'll go to the reading and they're like, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. And it's like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And it's because something, I think, in your body goes, you know what? You're right. I do have to quit the job. I do have to get out of the house. I do have to travel. I have to make up with my mom. And it's what needs to happen. And I think that through that alignment is really what manifests the reality. Now, with that being said, there's free will. And if you exercise free will,
Yeah.
you know, the universe will reroute you and reroute you and reroute you.
And that's a question that I was going to ask. Like, if somebody doesn't like what they're being told and they make that decision to use their free will and go the opposite way, the universe will just continue to bring them right back round to where they need to be.
Yes.
Not be, rather, to make the choice.
There-
For example, you're in a bad relationship, you should break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. You know, you might kind of tell somebody that in a reading, they don't want to hear it, so they don't break up. But then sure enough, in time, they'll just be back at the same spot.
That's true. There are some things that are definite. There are some things that come up in readings and I'm like, no, this is definitely going to happen. Now, I don't say that unless I see it to be true for whatever information I'm getting, but usually there's various paths that are illuminated. So if you think about what a reader can see, we will see the path that's most illuminated, but we'll see the branches. So if we say, you got to end this relationship, and the person is not willing to do it, and so something with the emotional body or the sexual body is like going, nope, I'm not going to let go. It'll take time. Now, how can that manifest? It could be that 6 months down the line, you eventually decide, I can't take this anymore. I've gone in circles and now I'm going to end it, which is fine, but you've kind of delayed things a little bit. So sometimes it'll have a slingshot effect. So once you do it, then all of a sudden you're making up for lost time and all these other things are starting to pour in now that you've created space. Or you could walk in on your boyfriend cheating on you. You know, it happens in so many different ways. And we're not always given the exact details. And that's what's weird about being clairvoyant is we can see symbols and shapes and we can tell you about time periods or we can tell you about certain things to look for and stuff like that. And it's like the most random stuff ever. Like ever.
I'm sure. And I would love to ask you that because I've never asked you this question before. I mean, and again, just talking about all readings, but obviously, you know, you and I, you read me quite often. What is it that you see? And I can, like, as somebody who doesn't do what you do, all I can say to the people who are listening is that Candace goes somewhere. Her eyes go somewhere and she's present, but she is also somewhere else. And, you know, there's been occasions where you have verbatim said things to me that have been told to me before, or you've said things to me that I completely understand. And what is it that you're seeing? So, for example, the last time that I came to see you was on the anniversary of my mum's passing. And we did a clairvoyant. And it was fantastic. And I got a lot from it and a lot of new information, validated, again, a lot of things that I knew that you would just you would never know, you know, that kind of thing. But I always leave and I think, is my mum just sat in a big rocking chair just talking to you? Is that what you're seeing, just having a chat? Or are you seeing like clouds or like
it's interesting.
puppies?
I mean,
what do you see?
My life is not like Ghost. I just want you to know that.
Oh, okay.
It's not like Ghosts. I'm not waiting, you know, I'm not Whoopi Goldberg.
No.
You know, jumping out with a bunch of spirits everywhere. I think I would be more, I don't know. I think I go both ways. I'm really glad I very rarely see things because I don't want to see things. It's kind of unsettling. But in terms of like clairvoyant stuff, nobody's asked me this question. I'm going to sound like an alien, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
No, I mean, I would love to know and the only reason that I'm asking, sorry, just to cut you off, because you were saying like you see symbols. So if you are to see a symbol, how are you able to then interpret that symbol into a sentence that you will then say to me or whoever you're reading that we then understand, though we understand it?
Because spirit will give me whatever I need to tell you to be like, bing, that's it. To know what to look for or things specifically that you would recognize. So when I'm doing a clairvoyant reading, it's weird. It's like I spend a lot of time out of my body. I know that. That's why I love substances and drinking and smoking and all of these things because
I get
it gives me a little bit of a break. It takes the edge off from the energy of always being like beep, 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 beep all the time. But also, you know, I've noticed that because I feel like even when I'm talking to you, I go in and out of my body. So when you talk about when I'm talking to you, I usually am doing this.
Yes, that's what you do. You're looking
past you.
Yes, you're looking past. Yes.
So I'm looking past your left shoulder. I'm reading your energy. So it's like everything that I see actually sits on your left side, which is interesting because that's your receiving side. So I don't know why I look that way, but when I'm looking at you and I'm doing this, I'm not in my body. I'm not here. You're talking to someone else. It's just weird. I can't explain it. I know I go somewhere else. I know I can be gone for for minutes at a time. The thing is that I try not to be so completely out of my body because I am a physical medium. So I can channel things, and I just don't want someone hanging out in my body that I'm not comfortable with or whatever is around.
Fair enough.
But for clairvoyant stuff, when I see symbols or when I see dates or I see names and things like that, sometimes it's like I'm like a Dropbox. It'll just be like, bing, oh, what's this name? Oh, this name, you're going to meet this person, or this is the date. But when it comes to images and stuff, I call it my psychic screen. And it's almost like, like an Etch-a-Sketch?
Yes.
That's what I see. So all of the images that come into me, I have to tune in. I'm doing it right now.
No.
I'm probably looking at the camera like this. I have to.
I forgot there was a camera there. This whole time we're on film too. Oh, damn. I've just been like laying back, swiveling in my chair. I apologize.
But it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. So what I actually start to see is it's kind of staticky and kind of dark, and it's gray and granular. But as I start to focus in on things, stuff will come through the Etch-a-Sketch like sand, and I can actually start to see what it is. If it's hands, if it's a face. That's why when I'm talking to a spirit, I can be like, what's up with the hairstyle? He always wore hats. He's got a uniform, because that's what I'll start to see. And it's all in shadows. So wherever I am going, it's not here. I'm going back and forth between here and somewhere else. But it's like I can tell some people some really creepy stuff. I'm able to, I'll get into telling you some funny stories, but things that it's not like a guessing game. And I guess that's my biggest issue that I have with like psychic mediums is they'll play like, oh, there's somebody's father in the audience and, he was in his 60s and he died of a heart attack. And 40 people raise their hand because it's just so like ambiguous.
Yeah.
But what I try to focus in on is, what I see, I call them confirmations to confirm, yes, this is the person that we're trying to talk to. They have an accent. I can hear a twang, or I'm getting a name, or they're talking about this relative. Or confirmations for me is they'll actually talk about the relationship they had with that person, certain symbols and things that they need to know, that they need to be aware of, gifts that they gave them. Or sometimes, because for them to come and talk to me, their vibration is so high. They have to lower their vibration down to my frequency, and I have to lift my vibration up.
And I was going to say, and you have to go up
and I have to
their
go
level.
up
Wow.
to their level, and I get the information, and they'll tell me sometimes how they passed, so I can be like, oh, they had this going on with their body, and this is what they're showing me, and this is what they felt. It's hard for them to stay for long periods of time because they have to slow their vibration down, and they're not used to being on this plane all the time, and they're not used to feeling pain.
So let me ask you this, is it harder for them to come down or for you to go up?
I think I have learned, because of the respect that I have, and I want to be able to have as clear of a connection as physically possible, that it's my responsibility to do everything in my power to keep my vibration up. And this has been through a series of trial and error. And so what I'm realizing is that to keep my vibration up, I do have to keep bad words out of my mouth. I do need to be watching what I'm eating. I do need to be making sure I get my sleep. I cannot be around negative energies. I can't sleep with people who've got stuff going on in their life. I can't participate in drinking as much or going out and partying. I can't. And it's been years of me realizing, did the waves of sobriety come because I chose it, or did it come because something was trying to fine-tune me?
Right.
And it's still going on, and it's still coming, because what used to be, a glass or two of wine back then was just normal. Now it's just, I'm donezo.
Yeah.
My body has become much more sensitive, and I'm much more conscious of what I'm around and what I'm putting in my body, only because I know that I'm not willing to risk the connection that I have for what I'm doing. So I'm not going to say I'm forced. I'm choosing willingly to make lifestyle changes, and I'm still young. Okay, I'm 27 years old.
Yeah, of
so
course,
it's like,
you are. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not easy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm learning that, because I want to have an hour session where I can get the most crystal clear reading I can get for the people that I'm delivering it to, I've had to make some major lifestyle changes. Major.
When did this start?
Oh my God.
I mean, because and again, this is stuff that we never taught that. We've never talked about this. I mean, is this hereditary?
Oh yeah,
for you?
totally. Well,
wow.
It is though, because on my father's side, my family are intuitive, and they're creepy intuitive. It's like my dad was telling me stories about my great grandmother. One of my favorite stories was, this was in the 50s. This is like when we were just now getting answering machines for house phones. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't know what sex a baby was going to be. One of my favorite stories is my father told me that his dad's grandmother, which would be my great-grandmother, when they were going to the hospital to have my father, she wasn't there. And she wasn't able to make it. And she called the house and like left a message while they were already at the hospital having the baby. And she called and she said, "This is Anna. I know that you guys had a son and his name is David." That's my dad's name. And she wasn't even there. So it's funny because, and she's Romanian, super witchy. She hangs out a lot. Every time I go to a psychic, she always comes through. And she's like she's very, very direct about things. So I feel like in a way I'm serving some kind of family karma. Like maybe now people are less likely to, reject me because of what I'm doing. I think part of it also stems from like my mother's side of the family is very intuitive too, but I know it really comes from my dad's side, and that she was into astrology and she practiced this stuff and she did this stuff. In a way, I love the fact that she can live vicariously through me, because I don't think she could do it as outwardly then as it's being done now. Okay. Now, my father is scary psychic and totally eccentric, and I love him to death, so I'm sure he's going to watch this. So hi, Dad. Hi. And he watches all of my stuff. Like, I love my dad so much. He's like my cheerleader. Like, I could be reading tarot cards at a lemonade stand, and he would be like, "Woo!" Like, so he's been here for the ride, and my dad's become increasingly more and more and more into this stuff, and like I'll talk to him about this stuff. But my dad's scary psychic. I mean, I remember growing up, there were times that my dad would say things, and one time my mom and my brother left, and they went and they got in the car and they left, and he looked at me and he went, "They're gonna get in a car accident." And I was like, "What?" He tried calling her, couldn't get a hold of her, she got in a car accident. So it's about, I think everybody is in tune. Yeah. Everybody is in tune. Some people are more likely to be prone to it than others. But for myself, from a young age, I saw things. I've always, younger, seen things. And I think that little kids are creepy, man. They're creepy. Like, they're naturally in tune to these things. So what some people might say is like, oh, it's imaginary friends. I don't think it is. I think it's dead people, or I think it's, energies that are around. And I would get freaked out. I mean, my dad would tell me that from the time I was like 2 or 3, I was like saying stuff, that I was seeing stuff and picking things up and telling him things. And my mom was just very hands off. She's like, "Fuck that." But my dad was always very spiritual and very involved and very helpful and encouraged me. And it was like, I remember numerous occasions, things that I told my dad that I saw that my dad was like, that was real. And homes that we lived in where I could tell him, things are coming to visit me at night, and this is in the room, and this is what they're saying, and this is what they're doing. And I went through a whole process of having terrible night terrors that were not night terrors. I mean, like being touched and woken up by things. And it was like somewhere around, I want to say the age of probably 8, 9, 10, when most of that stuff drops off for children. I feel like it dropped off for me. And then I was pretty normal. And then went back to being, I've always been obsessed with like spiritual stuff, occult stuff, creepy stuff. Mm-hmm. And I went back to learning and picking up and working on the tarot and reading cards when I was like 13, 14, which is weird because it was right about the time I was moving here. And I originally learned how to read playing cards from reading playing cards. It became tarot. And I was going through the cards and learning them and learning about astrology and like, really obsessed with like getting my hands on my grandmother's astrology books and like really, for some odd reason, just feeling in tune to it. Like, this is just this, I just have to learn about this.
Wow.
And did that 14, 15, 16, 17. Did that for a bit, and then kind of backed off a little bit and was into it. But it wasn't until Saturn went through Scorpio when I was like 21 and my whole life came crashing down, and I was like going to school for something totally different. I don't even think I've told a lot of people this, but I was going to school I was in the dental field. So it's like,
what?
I was in the dental field.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have great teeth. Oh,
I was in the dental field. So I was
I had no idea.
Working at practices and like helping run practices and like going to school for that, for like assisting and then to hygiene, and then wanting to be like, oh, I'll be a dentist, and like going through the process of like trying to get to something that was going to be stable. And then I think I realized around 21, 22, I was like, wow, I'm engaged to somebody and supposed to be getting married. I'm going down the path of working a job I don't want to work, and something's really off. And I remember just sitting back feeling like, okay, my life is going down this path that I just don't feel like it's me. It was not authentic. It was what was expected of me, but it was not authentic. And where it really started was in May that year. I woke up in the morning and I had been crying in my sleep, which I think is very odd. I've never done that before. And as soon as I woke up, I told my family on my mother's side, I was like, Grandpa's going to die. And it was just
Wow.
like this message, like, he's going to die, which was weird because we were supposed to go and see him the following weekend in Arizona. That's where I'm from, to go and visit. And I had told my mother and I had said, he's going to die. Something's going to happen. And she's like, you're crazy. She's like, we're going to see him next week. You're fine. You're just having anxiety. I'm like, no, you don't understand. 5 days later, he went into ICU. And 2 days later, he died. And I was devastated, like devastated. Like my other grandfather had passed, which I was young. I didn't really know a lot, but I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. He was the first spirit that came to really visit me that I had a conversation with after he died when I was 15 or 16. And I was like, that's odd. Like it was one of those, I don't know about you guys are listening, but when you're half awake, half asleep, and you're in that twilight, that's when they're most likely to come and interact with you. And so he actually came and sat. It's funny. He was a bigger guy, and he always wore these striped polos, and he wore Velcro shoes. And I had fallen asleep, and I was half awake, half asleep on the couch, and I had a whole conversation. And his back was turned to me, but he was adjusting the Velcro on his shoes, and he was explaining to me, I just came to visit you, and just want to make sure you're okay, and your grandmother's okay. And I had a whole conversation, and he was gone.
Wow.
And I don't think I really thought about it until later, but my grandfather passed on my mom's side. And after that happened, I was devastated. And I was like, oh my God. And at that point in time, that's when everything started to change. And I noticed I was hypersensitive. I couldn't be around people. I could pick up on things that there's no way I would have known about people, or illnesses that people had, things that they were going through. On numerous occasions, 3-4 times. I mean, we live in LA. People get rear-ended all the time, but every single time I got rear-ended, I get in the car. I'm like, damn it. Like, I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So after a couple months of dealing with that and feeling like I either need to go and talk to somebody who's spiritual or I need to be checked in somewhere. And I went back and forth. And to be honest with you, I talked to a therapist and I talked to a psychic, which is pretty much the same thing, depending on how good your psychic is. I don't know.
Yeah.
And what she said to me was very interesting. She said...
So who said? The therapist or the psychic?
The psychic.
Okay.
Yeah, fuck the therapist.
Yeah, right.
But the psychic had said, and she picked up on all of this stuff that I didn't even tell her. She had said, your grandfather dying was a gift. And she said, you needed to go through this experience to be able to reevaluate your life and where you're at and what you want to do. And I said, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing? And she goes, you're going to do what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, lady. And she was like, no, you are. And so I walked away from that and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But after about 6 months after my grandfather had passed, I was really interested in seeing a medium. And I took my mother and my mother and my uncle. Hello. And we go to this medium gallery where there's a woman doing a mediumship circle with about 30 people. And we walk in and we sit down and I'm looking all over the place. I'm like, what the hell's going on? It's just weird. There's a bunch of energy and it felt funky and really heavy. And I sat down and I looked at my grandma, my mother and my uncle, and I was like, we're going to go first. I was like, he's here. And the lady starts the whole thing and she goes to whoever she's drawn to. She immediately walks over to my uncle and starts talking to my uncle and is like, your dad's here and this is what he has to say. And he says, you can't make everybody happy. Thanks for doing all the paperwork and arranging everything for the family. And then goes to my mom and tells my mom, like, you're having a hard time. You need to ask for help. And it's just very specific messages from my grandfather, who was so selfless and like cared and put everybody else before himself. And then looks at my mom and goes, your dad feels really bad because as he was transitioning and as he was getting ready to pass, he was in and out of consciousness and he saw everybody trying to get to him and he saw everything that happened shortly after his death and how it affected everyone. And now that he's on the other side, he can see that Candace knew he was going to die and he feels terrible because of what she went through. And he's so sorry because she knew. And my mom fell apart. I remember my mom calling me from being out of town, being like sobbing, being like, I should have listened to you. And the woman told my mom, she said, you need to listen to Candace because she's going to help you and tell you things to protect the family. And I walked out of there and I was like, what the hell just happened? What happened?
God.
So long story short, I went back to astrology. I have been so grateful. I have some amazing people in my life. I started working with a medium for about a year and apprenticing with her. And she kept saying, oh, you're going to be a medium. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just want to read cards. And she's like, no, this is what you're going to do. And I did that for about a year. And I was in the midst of still working, still going to school, you know, figuring out my life, now being single, trying to get my act together, coming out of a long relationship, wanting to be 22 and partying and all this stuff, but also being like, there's all this magic going on. And so it took me about a year or so to finally figure out what the plan was. And it was after going back to doing tarot. You know, I lived in the Valley. I have a lot of Valley girlfriends. I have a lot of like Persian and Armenian friends, and they love readings. They just would love getting readings. And once a couple friends found out that I could read cards, they'd come to me and they'd ask me questions, and I'd do readings, and I never charged. It was always just, you know, I'll just tell you what I see. But within a matter of months, it was like my phone was blowing up and people were showing up at my doorstep going, can I get an appointment? And I never expected it to happen. I never did. It was not part of the plan. So on New Year's Eve back in 2013, I had like a serious talk with my brother. And my brother was like, look, like, if you want to do this. But like, get your life together, like get your act together, like take it seriously. Yeah. Like, I believe in you. You can do it. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to give it 1 year. I'm going to see what's going to happen. This is totally crazy. But I don't know if I'm ever going to have another time in my life to make this jump. Now, this is really before I was seriously studying the transits. And it's like, now looking back, it's amazing because it was divine. It was totally divine.
Wow.
And I decided, that's it. I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to give it 1 year. And if it doesn't work, I'll go back to school. I'll take the straight, narrow route, and I'll do what everybody else wants me to do. Mm-hmm. And 6 months in, I quit my job and started doing readings. I started my business. I started Beyond the Veil, and got a chance to go all over the city, work events, teach classes. Ended up getting a pretty sweet gig working for a big metaphysical shop downtown. Mm-hmm. Was grateful enough to get to not only read there, but work there, teach, continue my learning. There's so many people, and I think that's part of the reason why I said to you, it's so awesome to be able to do a podcast, but there's so many people who are more responsible for what I'm doing than me. It's not me.
Okay.
I've had a mentor now for going on 5 years.
I know that feeling. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's so much of the Saturn and Capricorn is we get a lot of people in our life that
feel like I've been so lucky. Like, I feel like I have had a lot of people who want to help.
Yeah.
I've been very blessed, and that has actually been a theme throughout my life.
Yeah.
I feel like. But I'm very grateful for it. I'm aware that not everybody has it, but it's just interesting that you said that, because I feel like I've always had that feeling of there's an element of people rooting for me, which has given me that extra, I can do it.
Well,
that I've always had, you know?
Yeah. Well, you should be fearless being in Aries.
Well, yeah, but then I sometimes run into a situation a little prematurely, as I'm sure you know.
Well, that's my moon, so I get it. I'm a little impulsive, but I think it's just so, like I said, I mean, I've gotten to have a chance to go over it, and it's like now, I joke. Like I said, I'm for the most part, I'm a very private person, and
you are.
I'm very private with what I put out there, and I guess I've had a lot of fear of criticism, but now I'm getting to the point where it's like, I think part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is to talk to people on a more earthly plane and explain things to people in a practical sense. I'm like a very meat and potatoes reader. I'm not going to fill you with a bunch of like unicorn, fairy, past life fluff, although that can come up. But I'm very direct with my readings, and I realize, like, regardless of what I want to do, that part of the reason why I'm here is to help people. And that's really what I love doing. And whether that's being able to explain to them their own personal chart, or teaching through experience and teaching people, especially our generation, don't go against the grain, don't fight it, you're going to get run into the ground. Because I got run into the ground several times fighting this before I finally threw my hands up in the air and I was like, fine, I don't do well with change. And I'm seeing that this second wave of it is coming with our Saturn return. So I'm trying to be like, okay,
here we
go.
Yeah.
And I think, what I'm so focused on right now is it's like I want to take the fear out of readings, out of tarot readings, out of astrology. I don't want people to fear the future, because if we're worried and reminiscing on the past, and if we're worried about the future, we're not present. So the key with readings is to be able to give them an idea of the energy and where it's going so we can accept it and learn how to navigate it and roll with it rather than being afraid. So I want to change the industry. I want to change how people look at what we're doing and what some people might look as a bit of a sham or, a scam or whatever. There are some real people out there who are doing things behind the scenes, excuse me, giving people advice and really doing the good work who aren't seeking the recognition. And I would like to think, like, I'm one of them. Like, I don't want the recognition. I want to be able to see people evolve and to see people who are really going to make a difference in this world realize their capabilities, like you, and what you're capable of doing. It's just so fun to see it play out. It's so amazing and fulfilling to see people go through struggles with their personal life or struggles with themselves or with addiction or with their jobs and go through this process of, I can sit there with them and tell them it's okay. Like, this is what's supposed to be happening. Like, you don't get to bypass the race and just cross the finish line. You have to be present with the lessons. And the more open you are to that, the harder it is to get through. And showing people also the karmic reasons why we go through what we go through. You know, when we explain to somebody, this was your choice. Your soul agreed to this family, this relationship, this place where you're living, this situation, this disability, this illness, this whatever. It gives them the power back. And it makes them realize, you know what, you're right. I chose this. I'm going to roll with it and I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities. And I think that I want to be somebody who preaches that because that's what happened to me. And so I want to show people that what may be a really difficult, dark time, there's something beautiful beneath all the crap that really shows you your own personal strength. I don't know. It's just, it's really odd. I look at astrology very differently than I think a lot of other people do. I want to look at it on an evolutionary level. Yeah,
which is fascinating. So I guess maybe to kind of round up, because this has been amazing. I have learned so much. People might be listening and they might have never gone for a reading before and they might now decide to do so because they've just listened to this podcast.
Okay.
How can somebody, I guess, aside from that gut feeling that you might have when you're in a reading, how can somebody know if they are kind of dealing with someone who is a sham? But because I mean, and this city especially, you know, but they are everywhere. People claim to have this ability, and they, you know, charge people a lot of money, and they are shams, and that is, I think, why people are skeptical, because I think there are a lot more of them than the genuine people.
I've read with a lot of people from all over, and there's like a list that I work through. And so number one, generally speaking, you want to avoid the corner store psychics.
Okay.
Anything that's got a neon light makes me a little uneasy. That's just me personally. Yeah. Although I've read with some people that do have storefront and they're the real deal. But, you know, a good psychic or a good intuitive or a good astrologer, you want to check around with people. Typically, you know, if they've got a decent following, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all that good. It just means that they might have really good exposure.
Yeah.
Thank God we have the internet and we have Yelp. And I think that that's helpful because you can get a really good idea of not just if they have a bunch of reviews, but if you want to read the actual meat of the reviews of what people are saying. Because in this world, people will get readings and a psychic can tell you a lot of things that are going to happen, but people will actually come back and bounce back and be like, you're right. Everything you told me totally happened. It all went through, and thank you so much for your help. And so I love being able to read reviews because these are real people. Now, obviously, if they don't have any reviews, I don't know. But a good psychic is not going to have to ask you any questions. A lot of us like to know your name. We want to know your birthday. Some of us work with numerology. Some psychics will have you actually write your name down and they'll work with your handwriting. But if you're in a situation where you're feeling like you just don't connect, it's a really good time to disconnect and say, you know what, I just don't feel it. And some readers will be like, you know what, I'm not pulling anything. Maybe I'm not your person. So somebody who you're not connecting with and you let them know really should be like, you know what, thanks, no problem. We're square, we're good, and go separate ways. But if they're playing 21 questions, it's not a good sign because you don't need to ask a lot of questions.
And that's that seems so obvious, but I didn't even think of that because I think and again, I can only compare it to the readings I've had with you. You don't ask me questions. What you do ask is for confirmations.
Yes. And I just want to I want to deliver you the message that I'm getting, and I want to say, does this make sense?
Yes.
Now, obviously, at some point, we're going to give you so much information, then we're going to stop and go, okay, let's put the pieces together. This is what I'm being shown. Does this make sense? Okay, now do you have a question about this? And we can expand on it. But if you're sitting in front of someone with a blank stare, not a good idea. And you got to think, when people go to a psychic, do you think people just go to a psychic to go to a psychic? People go to get readings in a time of crisis, in a time of need. So you have people who are emotionally all over the place sometimes, or panicked or worried or scared or devastated, and immediately want to have a safe space where they just divulge all of this information and then go, okay, tell me what you see. Don't do that. There's no need to do that, because the most clear information that you need to know is going to come in directly from source, and it will make sense. And if it doesn't, it's time to cut your losses and move. Whenever I go to a psychic, I always say, tell me what I need to know. And if it's about my love life, it's about my love life. It's about my career. If it's about my family, if it's about my health, a clear channel will just tell you everything that you need to know. Now, I mean, some people can say this is what it feels like. They're empathic readers. Some people are going to say, here's the name, here's the date. Everybody works differently. But you also have to realize, there is the scale of readings is amazing. I mean, there are shops where you can go and get your palm read for $10, and then there's mediums that want $500 for an hour. And in my opinion, yes, we have to pay our bills, but spirituality should be affordable. And it shouldn't be an arm and a leg to talk to grandma. It shouldn't be an arm and a leg to get your cards read. And so I would take that into consideration too. Yeah. Obviously, you've got some practitioners that have been studying this stuff and studying tarot or astrology or what have you for years. And they're going to charge whatever their worth is. There are some astrologers that are going to want $300 to spend an hour with you looking at your natal chart, because that's a lot. Yeah. And there's going to be some mediums. Generally, a rule of thumb, astrology and mediumship, I feel like, is a little bit more expensive.
Okay.
Clairvoyant and tarot tend to be a little bit more affordable. Tarot tends to be a little bit more affordable. And you can have somebody who is an excellent tarot reader. That does not mean that they're a psychic. I've met many people who don't claim to be psychic. They just understand the tarot. But I tend to lean a little bit more towards wanting somebody who's intuitive and connected in that realm. And any decent shop you go to, they will have a bio. And they'll say, this is their experience. This is where they come from. These are their areas of practice. So you want to kind of get a feel for that person. Psychics were very, very, very kind of, I'm not going to say sketchy, but we like to kind of keep to ourselves. So I don't think it's a situation where you can necessarily call them and shoot the shit and talk to them and get a feel for their personality. So that's why I say look for somebody who has some kind of information online. Look for a referral from somebody. I would have to say so much of my business comes from referrals. Oh, so-and-so read with you. I want to read with you. Yeah. And so asking people who you may know for somebody good would be excellent. You can look through certain societies. There are certain societies and groups online that will give you information about their readers. But, part of this is I would say support your local independent reader. You don't have to go to a spiritual shop to get a good psychic. In fact, some of the best psychics I know that I read with personally do not have a website, do not have business cards. Yeah. They have a phone. And they have been working for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I mean, I'm thinking of
full time. That is what they do.
That is what they do. They read from home. And these are the people who, God bless them. I mean, like I said, I've got a handful of people who I love so dearly, who are really good friends of mine, but they're mentors, and they're all 60 up. And they're all working behind the scenes privately, and they've been doing this for 20, 30 years. And they don't want the recognition. But what's amazing is that these are the people who are really helping others and who are grooming the next generation of the spiritual teachers who are coming in. So I don't get thrown off if they don't have a big following. I feel like some of the best readings I've had was referral based.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
You got to feel it.
Yeah.
And please, guys, I get so many people with horror stories that come in and go, I saw this psychic. She said I had a black cloud around me. I need to pay $1,000 to align my chakras. Or if I give her $200, she'll make me a spiritual bath and a candle, and it's all going to go away.
First thing that happened to me when I moved to LA. Real talk. I didn't go through with it because I couldn't afford it, but literally the first thing that happened to me, I went for a reading. She had a neon sign outside her window. Look, I was fresh off the boat, like, give me a break. But, and yeah, I had a lot of bad clouds around me, and if I paid her $350, she could get rid of it and give me a crystal. And she had like this piece of string that she tied in a little knot that she wanted me to carry around in my back pocket.
Okay.
And I very nearly just moved home, but I didn't.
Well, and that's the thing. And I'm big on, I make products and I do sell products, but I will never tell somebody you have to buy this, you have to have this crystal, you have to do that. No, it's not the way that the game works. And so you'll see a lot of readers that will instill fear, unfortunately, which is why some of this industry has been given a bit of a bad rap. But that's a big red flag, is anybody that's saying, oh, you're just a hot mess and you have all this karmic energy. And you might, but nobody's going to take a look at you and tell you that. A real reader is not just a reader, they're a healer. And they want to help you through the process. And regardless of what is being sold, and I love my things. I love my cards and my crystals and my herbs and my baths and my oils. But really, when it comes down to it, everything is about intention. And so much can be cleared through a reading. A reading, if done appropriately, the reason why you sigh this huge sigh of relief is because something has been aligned and cleared. And really, that's a healing. It's not a reading, it's a healing. And you don't necessarily need to buy all of these things. Can you make purchases from things appropriately that can help? Sure, but it's not needed. Spirituality, like I said, it should be affordable. It should be something that is spread. It should be something that we give back to other people. And you should be able to, my mentor always says this, she's like, you don't need all that crap. You should be able to hang from a palm tree in the middle of a tornado or a tropical storm and be able to give a reading. And so it made me realize we got to get back down to the basics. Yeah. And the basics is being able to have a conversation and being able to help them align those energies so they can accept the future.
Nice. That was cool. That was quite the first show. We hit them with the facts. Do you know what I mean? We came straight in with the facts and the realness.
Yeah.
This girl's legit, guys.
Oh my gosh.
It's so exciting that we're going to talk to you every week.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have some interesting insights into some topics, and maybe perhaps not just what's going on in terms of the world, but some other spiritual realms, and be able to talk about things, debunk things. I want to debunk things. I want to talk about, how to help people be able to kind of navigate whatever they're going through, and to do it with a bit of humor, because we are real people. We are real people. And I think that that's been something that's been a little odd for me is being in the media and having people coming up to me and saying all of these things. And it's like, you might catch me outside downtown with a drink in my hand,
Yeah.
being a real person.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think this is going to be a fun outlet to be able to talk about what we're actually going through and help other people kind of level up with some things. And if you're looking for an alternative source to get spiritual information, but you may not necessarily be, a guru or a yogi, or, if you're trying to find practical ways to be able to navigate your life with information, then hopefully you guys will return. Hopefully you will return. And Simon and I are going to put together some kind of an email.
Oh, yes.
That's what we're going to be doing. So we'll find a way to somehow plug that in. So that way we will be reading the emails. We'll get some questions from you guys. If you guys have topics that you want to hear about, or if you want to ask us particular questions, we will be addressing that. And I will be intermittently doing some readings, and hopefully also having some guests that are going to be coming. So I would love that if you guys would chime in. And anything else?
Should we end by just pulling one card?
Absolutely.
For fun. Let's do that. Let's just pull a card.
I like how you were going to throw that at me.
I know.
Why don't you pull a card? You pull a card and I'll pull a card.
So I bought my cards because I didn't know if Candace would bring hers. This is so much fun.
I love that you have that deck. My brother gave me that deck.
So for those watching the video, she's doing it very slick. I'm not doing it like that, so I'm just going to shuffle my
years of practice.
Oh, damn. Now you're showing me up.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, this is Big Daddy. I got King of Pentacles.
I got King of Pentacles. No, for real though, that just happened.
That was nothing short of magic.
What? No, for real.
For real.
If you're just listening to this, you need to go onto YouTube or wherever this video is going to be because we just pulled the same card.
What's amazing about this card, so this card represents, this is, first of all, this is a really great confirmation that like we're in alignment. So I really like that. Because last night I was doing my magic and I was writing down my intentions. I'm like, please let it go well.
Wow.
The King of Pentacles is either an earth sign male, but when you think about the evolution of the court cards, you have the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. The queen is about integrating emotionally, an emotional commitment or validation or being able to be very grounded in your work. And the king is more the masculine energy. So it's about being able to sit in a prized position of something being abundant, something being successful, something that you own, something that will do well, and something that is nourishing, not just in a financial way, but also in a way that provides for you and what you need.
It's your heart.
It's your heart.
Yeah.
But it's tangible. Pentacles are heavy. It's tangible. So that's an excellent card to be pulling at the end of the
both
first
of us to be
segment.
pulling
So
at the end
clearly we're both coming up as kings, even though you're more of a queen. But,
Oh, I know, honey.
wow, that just makes me so happy. So that would be the card of the week. So focus on that and what is not only tangible and stable, but also what is providing for you.
Boom.
Oh my
Mic
goodness.
drop. Show
Mic
one
drop.
done.
So
Thank you.
once again, to the studio, thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you to everybody at Kill the Messenger, Hugo.
You guys are
Little producer
amazing.
over there, Sean, for letting us come to the space. And we'll be back.
We'll be back. So thank you guys for listening to Magic Hour, and we'll see you for the next episode.